didn't even know AOL existed anymore. And I came across an article from AOL.com. Honestly, it was from Bankrate because they're listed at the top of this article. And it talks about when you should cancel your car insurance or when you should not renew it or not continue the policy and at what times. I wanted to go over this because I didn't agree with most of this article because a lot of the data that you're going to see online is geared towards you shopping with another company and getting our business. If you're interested in that, I'll put a link in the description below. Feel free to check out local agents. The initial thought was, okay, so if you have a policy and you go on a vacation, a long vacation, or you're with an injury and recovering from a surgery, you don't necessarily need to cancel your policy in those scenarios. You actually can extend or delay your policy if given approval. I don't know if they knew that, but that's an option. I've done it with a couple customers. It's pretty rare, but then when you're working with the right agent, it makes sense that you can do that. For example, I had a customer that had surgery and they had been in and out of the hospital. They couldn't drive anymore. They didn't know if they were going to cancel the car insurance and sell the car, and they thought they were okay. We called our company and we talked to the underwriter and went back and forth, and they agreed we'll give them 90 days that they don't have to pay anything. They're not covered for anything, but we're not canceling the policy because we didn't want to have a lapse. In case they wanted to start driving again, then they didn't want to leave them without insurance. If any of you have had a lapse or have started a new policy, even though you left on good terms, you're going to pay a lot more, especially with the way the rates are right now. Some companies won't even insure you. So it's almost like you're looked at as a bad risk, which it's a higher risk, and you don't want that. So if you're going to have something like that, talk to your agent and see if the underwriters will approve for you to get that extension where you don't have to be the driver on the policy. When you move to another state, they said if you're going to, you need to cancel insurance. I agree there. You need to find out what you need to do to transfer the insurance. Each state wants you to be insured properly, and by doing that, you have to transfer the insurance. In most cases, you cancel one and start the other. But if you do one over the other, we're in that same scenario. If we delay by a day by accident, then we have a lapse. And then when we go to shop it, if we try to switch companies, then we might not as good of a deal as we should have. But transferring to another state, that does make a difference. Now, I've had a lot of customers that have transferred to other states. If it's for work purposes and you're just going there temporarily, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 8 months, in most cases, it's good to call your agent, have them let the underwriter know, but they'll probably let you keep your current state's policy without having to transfer it because they know that the intention isn't to stay there long term. If you're permanently moving your address and you're going to switch everything over, then yes, you need to call your agent, find out if they write in that state. If not, I'll put a link in the description below. You can work with one of the agents that I work with, and they can help you get the right price for that state. But how long do I have to do that? Well, it's different in every state, but most states 30 days. It's like your license. When you switch your license over, you're supposed to switch the insurance over. Honestly, if you know you're going to move there, the sooner the better, but it really just depends, especially if you're on a renewal, timing it so that you get the renewal without having to renew and then buy the new one and then get refunded on the old one. It's just easier split if you switch, cancel the one on the renewal, start the one on the renewal, and you don't have to pay any extra to the old one. So how do I cancel my insurance policy? I don't really understand. And a lot of people actually don't understand that. It's fairly simple. There's two main ways that you can cancel your policy. The first one is just pick up the phone and call them. Now, that is a little trusting because if you have a bad relationship with the agent, oh, I didn't get that phone call. So you got to trust the place. Now, if that's the case and you don't trust the agent, call the 1-800 number that gets you to corporate and call the corporate number that will help you cancel that policy. The other one is to do it in writing. You've sent it in an email, you made sure that they got it, you can call to confirm, and if you've signed something, cancel my policy effective, and then you put the date you want it to cancel, and then you sign it at the bottom. That's honestly all an insurance company needs to cancel your policy. I get it. If you call on the phone, half the time these agencies are going to try to keep you. They're going to be like, hey, what's going on? But to be truthful, if you're moving from one state to the next, most of the time, they're not going to fight for that. They're only really going to fight if they know that you're leaving them for a different company. But letting them know that, hey, I've moved out of state, I need to cancel my old policy, 9 times out of 10, that's the easiest thing to do. Some companies will send you what's called an LPR, and for the life of me, I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but essentially it allows you to cancel, and they're notating it. That way you can't come back to them a day later and say, oh, I didn't say that. Most of the time the calls are recorded, so if you're calling them anyways, then you're going to be on recording saying that. What they're doing is they're going to send you an e-signature, an electronic sign, and you're going to just DocuSign that back to them, just stating that policy cancels on whatever date they picked. Now, watch that closely. Most agents aren't tricky about this, but just make sure that when they send it to you, the date matches the date you wanted. Then sign it, and you should be good to go. There's no follow-up that you have to do on that policy, because once that's canceled and cleared, you should get notification that you're no longer insured with that company as of the date that you picked. Okay, but what if your car breaks down? Should I cancel my policy then? No, honestly, you should keep it unless your car is going to be down for 6 months, 5 months, 3, like whatever you're comfortable with. Just know that if you cancel the policy now, you restart it later, there's a good chance that you're now a different risk. Your insurance score plays a factor again, all of the pieces, not having prior insurance, and some companies you can't go with just because they have guidelines on not having insurance. Some states, they don't allow you to do that, so it just depends on where you live. But in most cases, if you think that you're going to get a new car or the car is going to be up and running within 6 weeks or something similar, then you shouldn't cancel the policy. Keep it active, drop all the coverages down. So if you're not going to be able to drive the car, you can do what's called storage insurance if the company allows it. I wasn't going to go too far in depth on that, but I'll just tell you now because it's a quick answer. No need for a video. If you're going to do storage insurance, most agents will tell you can't if you only have one car. If you have 2 cars, you can always put one in storage, and you can if you have one. Technically, that's true, but I'm 50% accurate for that one. So everything's approval by underwriters. So an underwriter can determine if that's approval risk. And if that's the case, you can tell them, hey, I'm not going to drive the car. Can I just put storage on it? Which just means you have no liability. Nothing's covered on the car except for comprehensive. Comprehensive is very inexpensive in most to every state, so you're not going to pay a lot for that coverage. Worst case scenario, you don't want to deal with it. You just say, let's just drop the coverage as low as possible. You're going to lower the cost so that if something did happen that you were liable for while the car's sitting there, you've still got some liability coverage. It's a good thing to have, but if you know it's going to be sitting in a garage and no one's going to be in there, try to see if you can put storage insurance on it. Now, if the car is going to be towed, that's different because now you technically have a liability. If the hood falls off and it was your car, you're liable for that. And if you only have storage insurance on it, you need to switch to some sort of coverage. Most towing companies are supposed to require you to have insurance. They don't always check it when they should, but now they're taking on the liability. Unfortunately, legal is still going to come after you, and then you go after them, and it's just a headache that nobody wants to have. But knowing that if you're going to have the car towed, then don't take off the insurance yet. At least get it to the location it needs to be. And then if you're no longer responsible for the car or don't have any liability risk, then it might make sense to take the insurance off, assuming that you're not going to buy a different car in the near future. So Mark, what if my car's totaled? This is a gray area. A lot of companies, and actually, I'm going to tell you what happens, and I'm not going to give you advice here because once again, this is each underwriter has to decide this, but I haven't seen a company never do this. I've seen every company offer this, and it's an option. If your car is totaled, if it's in the shop, if it's gone, you're no longer liable for it, you signed off the title, you don't own it, but you don't have another car, technically the right possible route is for you to get a non-owner's insurance policy. This essentially means you don't have a car. If you drive someone else's, you can add comprehensive and collision and your own liability coverage. If you get hurt, you can add your uninsured motor. You can have all of the standard coverages without owning a vehicle. That's the right way to do it. If I cancel my policy, do I get a refund? If you're owed money, yeah, everything's basically broken down to a daily amount. Yeah, you pay a month at a time or 6 months at a time or 12 months at a time. You choose that option. And when you cancel early, there's something called unearned premium. That's money that they charged you for that you paid that you didn't earn or use. In that case, you get refunded that amount unless you're negative. The reason you may be negative is some companies charge in gaps. For example, when I used to sell AAA policies, they would always have, if there was a policy change, it would skip a payment. And that was a known thing. It was a headache because then people owed 2 payments a month later and it was just not fun. But you have those pieces where there are rules and there are guidelines depending how you pay. You gotta be responsible with the funds to understand that properly. But the way most policies are is if you're paying month by month, you always pay a month in advance. I would say 99% of the time. So if you cancel on a 30-day in and you cancel 10 days in, they're gonna owe you those 20 days back in premium. And that leads to the last piece, which is, do I get any fees? There can be. That's, who knows? California was known for that and having that. So if you're watching this and you're in California, you may wanna check with that. I know a lot of companies that were doing $25 and $50 fees for canceling early. But to be honest with you, I haven't seen one of those in years. Most companies are just sad to see you go, and they let you leave for another company. You'll have to check your paperwork or talk to your agent if there are fees. But if there are, I honestly have never seen them more than a $50 fee. But what happens if I forget to pay them and I just don't pay them? Then it just cancels on the date that they picked. Assuming that you're not on an auto renew, I actually just had this happen with a customer, and they said, I wanted to cancel my policy. I wanted my parents. I was like, congratulations, it's going to be way cheaper. That's good. That's what I would do. And they ended up saying, what do I do? It's showing that I'm canceled and I just didn't pay it. Do I owe anything? No, you don't owe anything. It was on the renewal. You didn't renew it, and it just goes away. Now, do they prefer that you call them and cancel it and just have a cancellation versus a non-renewed cancellation? It doesn't matter. Honestly, it sounds like you're non-renewing. It has never affected the price in my scenarios. If you guys know differently, let me know in the comments below, but I have not ever seen that affect anyone going forward. I would like to make one correction. I actually was rereading the article a little bit, and Bankrate, sorry for saying this in the beginning, but correction, they did say don't cancel your policy if you're on vacation. So I'll give you the credit there. I apologize for that. The last piece is, can my insurance company cancel my policy? And yes, I've actually linked a video here that will go into depth on how and when they can cancel your policy. If you're just looking for a better rate, if you're thinking of changing different insurance, the link in the description below will help the most. Otherwise, if you're trying to figure out what companies are going to be the best option, I'll put a video here that will go over that. I'm Mark with Think Insurance. I'll see you in the next one.